Halloween became a true nightmare. It was then that violence found me. My name is Sarah, and I don't know how to keep going after what happened to me last Halloween. I'm not looking for sympathy or excuses. I just want to share a story that changed me forever. Maybe it will help someone. Last year, on October 31st, there was a party in Seattle that my friend Emily convinced me to attend. At that time, I was already broken. After my father died from a heart attack in the summer, and my relationship with my boyfriend ended a few months earlier, I had lost any hope for anything good in life. My new job, which I had started a few months ago, only made me feel lonelier. Everyone seemed distant. Everyone around me was laughing, enjoying life, while I felt like a background nobody noticed. When Emily said, "It'll help you unwind a little. All our colleagues will be there," I thought maybe it was worth a try. Though honestly, I didn't expect anything good to come out of it. I put on a simple witch costume I found on sale for a few dollars and went, without any real hope for something special. The party was held in a large loft on the second floor of an old building in downtown Seattle. There were a lot of people, noise, laughter, music, loud voices. As usual, I felt invisible. The whole time, it seemed like I was trying to be the person others wanted me to be, but I could ever find myself. I had so many plans for life, but everything fell apart as soon as reality hit me with a few hard punches. That's when I saw Mark. He worked in the same office, but we barely spoke. At work, he was always reserved and professional, but at this party, he seemed different. His looks lingered too long, and his jokes felt inappropriate. I didn't like it, but I didn't want to draw attention or come off as rude. I was taught not to be confrontational, and as a result, I often felt like I let people cross boundaries. But this time, it was different. I couldn't have known that this evening would be the beginning of the worst nightmare of my life. Comments from Reddit users. Sarah, your words really struck me. I recently lost someone close to and feel just as lonely. I hope you can find the strength. Looking forward to hearing more of your story. What you're describing sounds all too familiar. I hate when people take advantage of your kindness. Stay strong, Mark. I had a colleague too who seemed normal until he made his move. Your story resonates with so many of us. Thanks for sharing. Losing a father and the end of a relationship. Sarah, I understand that pain. It still hurts, even years later. I hope you find peace. October 31st, 2023. That was the day when everything I considered my life shattered, even more into tiny pieces. Even before the party, I felt like I had no strength to move forward. I went because I felt pressured. By Emily, by the world, by myself. People always said things like, "You need to get out," and "A change of scenery will help." But this time, nothing worked. Nothing could silence the emptiness eating me from the inside. The whole time at the party, I felt the tension building. I tried to pretend everything was normal, laughing when I was supposed to, nodding during conversations. But every time I got my reflection in the mirror, I saw the empty eyes of someone who had been broken long ago. Life had broken me, and I knew it. A lost father, a failed relationship, a job where I constantly felt like an outsider. I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and all it would take to fall was one more push, and that push came at the party. Mark, the same colleague I barely spoke to, was around most of the evening. At first, I didn't think much of it. He seemed like just another person trying to hang out at a party where most people had either left or were busy with their own thing. But then something started to change. His glances became unsettling. He kept finding excuses to touch me. At first, they were friendly gestures, but soon they became intrusive. I could feel the tension growing inside me. I wanted to run, but at the same time, I didn't know how. Was this happening to me again? Why is it that every time I let my guard down, even for a minute, things only get worse? That was the moment I realized I was drowning. I couldn't control the situation. I had lost all my internal bearings, just like months ago when my world started falling apart. And even though I knew I was in danger, I still stood there, paralyzed by my own fear, like it was some kind of curse. Reddit users' comments. Sarah, your words about feeling empty and powerless resonate with me deeply. I feel the same way every time I try to force myself to be normal at events like that. Your story reminds me of my own struggles. Stay strong. I know what it's like to feel constantly broken. It's like you're always falling into a void and everyone around you thinks you're coping, but in reality, you're just waiting for the next blow. What you said about how people can change from normal to threatening is exactly what I've experienced in my own life. Thank you for sharing this. It's so important to talk about these things. Sarah, you're not alone in your feelings. I drowned in similar thoughts when I lost my father. Sometimes it feels like the world just keeps throwing new obstacles at us. Please continue sharing your story. October 31st, 2023. The clock showed 11:45 p.m. when I finally realized I was almost alone at the party. Most of the people had already left. The music was still playing loudly, but the loft in downtown Seattle felt empty. The lights were dim, and the room I was in seemed darker than before. I started to notice that every look from Mark had become more intrusive, every gesture more dangerous. There were only a few people in the next room, but they were all engrossed in their conversations, as if nothing was happening. And then it hit me. I was alone with him. Mark moved closer. "Let's talk, Sarah," he said with a slight smile, but his eyes were staring too intensely. My heart started to race. I couldn't find an excuse to leave, couldn't escape his gaze. His hand touched my shoulder, and it made me flinch. Everything inside me was screaming to run, but I was paralyzed by fear. I couldn't believe that someone I knew from work could be capable of doing something bad. My mind was in chaos. I was trying to convince myself that this was just my imagination playing tricks on me, that I was overreacting. "Just relax. We're only going to talk." His voice was too calm for the situation. I knew it was a trap, but I still hesitated, unsure of what to do. How do I say no? How do I escape a situation when no one around you is paying attention? I took a step back, but he only tightened his grip on my hand, which he had grabbed, and pulled me into a dark corner of the loft, where the sound of the music drowned everything else out. I started to panic. My thoughts were racing. This can't be happening. How is this even possible? But my body was no longer obeying me. Fear and shock had paralyzed my every move. I wanted to scream, but I knew my words would be lost in the sound of the music. He forced me to sit on a couch, and I realized I had lost control of the situation. Despair overwhelmed me. I felt trapped in a situation where no one could see or hear. And this happened just minutes before midnight. While everyone else was having fun, I was drowning in my own nightmare. Reddit users' comments. "I don't even know what to say, Sarah. The way you describe this paralyzing situation feels too familiar. The fear that no one will hear your words, and that awful moment when you realize no one is coming to help. Stay strong. I know what it's like when your mind is frozen with fear, and your body just refuses to respond. It's terrifying to read, but I'm grateful for your courage to share this. This part of your story hit me deeply. Being surrounded by people, but no one noticing what's happening. That sense of isolation is one of the scariest things. Mark seemed so ordinary, but this just reminds me again that appearances and true nature are different things. It's hard to imagine what you're going through. I hope you find the strength to keep fighting." The clock read 11:58 when everything around me began to move in slow motion. I was on the couch in the dark corner of the loft, the sound of the music drowning out everything else, and Mark kept leaning closer. My mind teetered on the edge of panic. I had lost control of what was happening, but something inside me screamed, "This shouldn't be happening." I tried to resist, but every movement felt insignificant. It was a strange combination of fear and paralysis, unable to figure out how to stop something that felt almost inevitable. The room seemed to close in, and even though the loft was in the heart of Seattle, with hundreds of people passing outside, here, in this dark room, I was completely isolated. "Sarah, you understand. I just want to help you, right?" Mark said quietly. In his eyes, I saw nothing but cold control. I tried to respond, but the words stuck in my throat, as if my voice no longer had any strength. My heart pounded in my temples like a clock counting down to disaster. The word no wouldn't come out, and that feeling of helplessness made everything worse. Mark held my hand tightly, preventing me from pulling away. I glanced at my phone screen, only 2 minutes left until midnight. Suddenly, something inside me shifted. I realized this was the moment I had to do something to save myself. I didn't know if it would work, but I gathered all my strength and yanked my hand out of his grip. Mark looked shocked, and I used that moment to quickly rise from the couch. Without looking back, I rushed toward the door of the room. My legs carried me toward the loft exit, and I practically burst onto the street, breathless and trembling. It was 12:01. Halloween was over, but my nightmares were just beginning. I was alone in the middle of a bustling street, surrounded by people, yet I felt completely unseen. In that moment, I understood that this wasn't just a party I could forget. What had happened that night would haunt me for a long time. After I escaped the loft and ran out into the street, it seemed like the nightmare was over. But things only got worse. Even though the street was crowded with people, I remained alone in me struggle. That night, as I tried to find a safe place, something inside me warned that the danger wasn't over. At some point, I was attacked. It happened quickly and horrifically. I was powerless. My strength wasn't enough to fight back. The people around didn't notice my screams or fear. It happened in a dark corner of the street, where even the light couldn't offer me protection. After that, I felt shattered, as if a part of me was lost forever. It was something I could never forget, something that will always be a part of me. Reddit users' comments. That's the worst fear, when your voice has no strength, when your no just doesn't come out. I've been through something similar and realized how important it is that you broke free. Stay strong. Sarah, reading this feels like looking at my own story. I never found the words to describe that fear when you feel trapped with no way out. Thank you for sharing your story.